What's up guys, Jeff here from Worldwide Cyclery, and today we're going to go over the loaded topic of bottom brackets and which one you need for your bike. So, to preface this video, this is going to be a little bit more geared towards mountain bikes, as that's what we do most often here. Road bikes have a whole nother world of different bottom brackets, but we're going to kind of focus on the main ones for mountain bikes and the most common ones. So to start off with that, the most common bottom bracket on mountain bikes that's been around for, I think, over a decade now, or probably way longer than that, I don't know, as long as I've been alive, is the 6873 English threaded BSA. These are kind of known with a few different terms. So BSA is a common one, 68/73. What that means is the actual width of the bottom bracket shell. So the shell can be 68 millimeters wide or 73 millimeters wide. Basically all these ones these days are going to come with little spacers in there. So if your shell is 68, it'll tell you where to put the spacers, and if it's 73, you probably won't use any spacers. So threaded bottom bracket, the right side is reverse thread and the left side is normal thread. Very common. A lot of people love these because they're kind of mechanic friendly. You can just thread them in and thread them out, and a lot of people say they creak less than the press fit ones. That's a whole nother video though, but this is a very common bottom bracket, and if you've got a mountain bike that has a bottom bracket that threads into it, it's going to be a 68 or a 73 English threaded BSA. But don't forget 83 mil. So a lot of downhill bikes were using an 83 mil, and I think still are. Downhill bikes are a little bit less common these days, but a lot of those are using a bottom bracket that's basically the same thing. It's just 83 millimeters wide. So that's your most common bottom bracket right there. Second up is the BB92, also known as a press fit 92. So these are the actual bearings right here. So these are aluminum cups with the bearing in the middle. This particular bottom bracket is made for a crank that uses a 30 mil spindle, like all the race face cranks, all the modern race face ones. And you can see this presses into the frame. There's no threads at all. This right here is the sleeve that goes in the middle of it to kind of keep water and dirt and grime out of the back of the bearings. So that's a common one. That's on a lot of carbon bikes. When they started becoming more popular, we're using that PF92 bottom bracket. Trek's got their own sort of weird version. I believe they call it like a press fit 95 or BB95. Trek's confusing. They do a lot of weird proprietary stuff, but if you got a smaller bottom bracket, sometimes they call it a press fit GXP. I think SRAM was calling it that for a while. There was a lot of different terminology. Again, this is a loaded topic because there's so much different terminology. It is kind of confusing. Bottom brackets are unfortunately not an easy thing. We did make a funny joke video about this for those who are so frustrated with bottom brackets. We'll have a link below to that, so there's a little humor when it comes to bottom brackets as well. Next up is the press fit 30. So a press fit 30 bottom bracket right here. The deal with these is you've got your bearings in there. They're housed in an aluminum or a plastic shell, and that's going to press right into the bottom bracket. There's a link below to our blog that's got all sorts of measurements and specifications on all these. So if you do have your frame and you've pulled the cranks and bottom bracket out, you're going to be able to see all the measurements laid out, and then measure things yourself to kind of figure out what kind of bottom bracket you have. So this is another fairly common bottom bracket. Press fit 30, not to be confused with a BB30. A BB30, there's not going to be any cup surrounding the bearing. It's going to be a bearing that goes straight into the frame, and a BB30 is very rare on a mountain bike. It's a lot more common on a road bike. Again, that's kind of to save weight, but on mountain bikes, the press fit 30 is a little more common. A lot of brands that we're seeing these days, bike brands, are going back to threaded bottom brackets. That was kind of the gold standard that everyone used for a long time. Then when carbon frames came out, they were trying to shave weight and sort of expand the width of the shell for stiffness, and that was the birth of the press fit 92 bottom bracket and the press fit 30 bottom bracket. There was a lot of feedback that they creaked too often. They were not really user friendly because it required some special tools to press them in and remove them, whereas this you just needed a simple wrench for that fit that bottom bracket. So that's kind of the little gist there. The next piece of it, which one fits your bike? So that has to do a lot with, so two things there. What bottom bracket does your frame have? We kind of went over some of the common ones there. You need to know the answer to that question. And the next question is, what cranks are you using? So the cranks are going to determine what bottom bracket you're going to use. So for example, this bottom bracket right here, race face bottom bracket, and it's opened up for a 30 millimeter spindle. So if you have race face Next SL, G3, G4 cranks or 6 cranks, any like race face crank with a 30 mil spindle, and your frame has a press fit 92 bottom bracket, this is going to be your bottom bracket. So again, the bottom bracket, the two things that matter there, what one does your frame use, and then what are your cranks like. So that's for that setup. This one right here, English threaded 6873. It is bored out for a 30 mil spindle, so this is going to again work for any crank that's got a 30 mil spindle on it. Press fit 30. This one again is bored out for a 30 mil crank spindle. 30 mil crank spindles are getting pretty common these days. There's also the 24 mil ones like SRAM has and Shimano. So then again, they're different, right? So SRAM, you're going to have, I believe it's 24 on one side and 22 on the other side. So what we recommend a lot of the times is to get the bottom bracket that's the same brand as your cranks. So that usually keeps things simple. So if you've got a frame with a press fit 92 shell and you've got, you know, race face cranks, get a race face bottom bracket. That way you know it's going to work. There is obviously other companies like this one, for example, here, Wheels Manufacturing makes this. They don't make any cranks that I know of, and I believe this fits race face cranks. So there is other, you know, I guess you could call them third-party bottom bracket manufacturers out there. Chris King would be one of them as well. And they make great stuff. It's a little more confusing figuring out which one of their bottom brackets is going to fit your cranks. But all that information's out there. You kind of just have to dig around or, you know, hassle a shop like us and we'll figure out the answer for you if you want to do that too. So that's kind of one of our recommendations that keeps it simple, right? You know, if you're, a lot of these bottom brackets are all great. They're all going to have sealed bearings and that's important, but these days if you just go with the same brand bottom bracket as your cranks, it can usually solve a little confusion. You know, in the early days, people were saying, oh, I have, you know, SRAM cranks on my bike with a press fit 92. Can I get a race face bottom bracket? So you couldn't because, you know, like I said, the SRAM GX piece 24 mil spindle was actually stepped. So if you got a race face bottom bracket, it wouldn't work because it wasn't made for SRAM cranks, it was made for race face cranks, and so it would have 24 on both sides. So there's a lot of confusion on this one, and it does take some time and patience to figure this out. And again, like I said, you can always bug a shop like us to try and help you figure this out. And hopefully a lot of the pictures in this video will help clear up some of that confusion around that. So there's some of the key points, you know, some of your common bottom brackets and the easiest ways to figure out, you know, what bottom bracket shell your frame has, and then what cranks you have, and then, you know, how you can choose a bottom bracket from there. So if you guys are still watching and you're not bored out of your mind after listening to that long, extensive bottom bracket talk, you know, if you have any more questions around bottom brackets, feel free to drop us a comment below or shoot us an email at info@worldwidecyclery. We eat, sleep, and breathe mountain bikes, so we're happy to help you out when it comes to bottom bracket fitment. And yeah, comment, thumbs up, subscribe, and hopefully we see you guys in the next video. Cheers.